Good morning. My name is Tony Juniper, and it's my great pleasure to be here this morning with the Cambridge Green Party launching the local manifesto for the 2015 general election campaign. I'm particularly pleased to be here this morning to see the momentum in the local Green Party campaign here in Cambridge, not least because of my role in the local political scene back in 2010 when I stood as the candidate for the Greens in the Cambridge constituency. We ran a very energetic and very determined campaign, and as a result of the work we did on the ground here, we managed to triple the Green Party's vote in the city compared with the previous general election, and actually finished up with the third best result nationally in the more than 300 seats where the Green Party fielded a candidate, the other two being of course Brighton Pavilion and Norwich South, where we also did very well. So 2 seats in the eastern region where the Greens excelled and where we've been building since, and hopefully to make a big impact in 2015. 2010 was, of course, one thing. The Greens saw building of support, but I think it's fair to say that looking at the situation now compared to then, it is transformed. For the last 5 years, the Greens have had a high-profile MP working in Westminster in the form of Caroline Lucas, who I had the pleasure to see yesterday evening. We were discussing the way in which she's found her time in Parliament and looking forward to the election campaign in 2015 and being re-elected. And it's clear that as a result of the work that she's done there, we've made a real impact on the national scene. And not only have we had Caroline being very effective in Westminster, we've recruited a new member of the European Parliament in the form of Molly Scott-Cato, who's also been doing a fantastic job on the national scene. And of course we've had our new leader, Natalie Bennett, out there making the Green case across the country. And as a result of all of this, never mind what's going on with the rest of the political scene in Britain, we've seen this incredible surge in support for the Green Party, and obviously that's been reflected in the way in which the national membership has rocketed over the last couple of years, and in Cambridge we've seen a 500% increase in membership. I think that says a great deal about the way in which voters are beginning to reshape their views based upon not only what they've heard from the Greens, but also what they're seeing not being delivered by the mainstream Westminster parties. And the mainstream Westminster parties have become, if anything, more homogenised over the last 5 years. The growth, growth, growth mantra that they put across, almost with a single voice, is becoming less and less plausible to many, many voters. It's an old economic idea whose time has come, and it needs to be replaced by a different kind of progressive economics, which only the Green Party so far in British politics is putting forward. But the encouraging thing is, of course, is that many people can see this now as a plausible alternative voice, going beyond the false ideas of the old order and bringing forward something that people are really willing to get behind. And people can see the shortcomings in the current approach towards economic development here. Take the question of air pollution. We see traffic growth as being a fantastic indicator of GDP increasing, and yet that is the main contributor to killing 29,000 people in this country every year, according to statistics from the Department of Health. So whilst we might be growing the economy, we're diminishing our quality of life, and also we're undermining social cohesion through the increasing inequality that we've seen in our society over the last 5 years. So what's the alternative to that? Well, it's a green approach based upon progressive economics and rebuilding social capital, and that's what the Green Party is all about nationally, and of course is all about here in Cambridge. And of course Cambridge is a particularly interesting place to be thinking about the future of our society, not only from the point of view of the city or the country, but of course the world, as we understand the implications of climate change, increasing demand for natural resources, the degradation of ecosystems. All of these questions are becoming red lights on the global dashboard amongst the scientific community, but the political establishment in this country hardly talks about them. This must change, and one of the best places from which to foster that change is here in Cambridge. We have some of the world's leading institutions here who are charting this set of challenges, and it seems to us in the Green Party that if we can build upon that global leadership by reflecting in local politics the implications of that, then we can help take this country towards a much brighter future and to embed the UK in what is undoubtedly going to be a technological, social and economic revolution of historic proportions as the world begins to grapple with these questions. And so I'm very excited about the Green Party's offer here in Cambridge. I'm hoping that we'll do far, far better than we did in 2010. I'm delighted to be handing on the baton to our fantastic candidate, Rupert Reed, a great friend and an admirable campaigner who has the highest integrity and who I'm sure is going to inspire many people to vote Green as we get into this election period, which I believe begins as soon as next Monday. So I'm going to hand over to Rupert now. He's going to say a little more about the contents of the manifesto, then we'll have a Q&A, and then we can maybe break into smaller groups for conversations as necessary. Rupert, over to you.
Tony, thank you. It's wonderful to be here sharing this platform with you here this morning, and wonderful to have the opportunity to introduce this document to you all. So this is the Cambridge Green Party Manifesto 2015. Sets out our stall for the coming 6 weeks, and we're very proud of this document, which a lot of work has gone into from everyone in this room and a lot of people outside this room. What's in this manifesto? So I'm going to be focusing on two things primarily. We cover the whole gamut in the manifesto, but the two things I want to focus on for the next few minutes are transport and the NHS. Why these two issues? Well, partly because they are totemic of broader themes, and partly because they are very, very important for their own sake. The broader theme which they're both totemic of is the crucial importance of keeping our public services public. And in that regard, it's very telling and very symbolic that we're here in Cambridge Central Library this morning for this manifesto launch. Because this floor of the library, right where we are right now, is under threat of privatisation right now from the County Council. And that really says everything about what the Greens are against. What we stand for is preserving this kind of public space, keeping it public as a social resource for the common good. So, transport and the NHS. In terms of transport, one of our central policy offers, of course, is our pledge to return the railways to public ownership. I'm our national transport spokesperson, so this is a policy that I'm intimately involved with. And along with that policy, we would also be reducing fares by 10%. And that's part of the backbone to our Transport Green Print that we launched in January, our Transport Green Print for Cambridge, that is now incorporated into the manifesto that we're launching here this morning. So to run over again our key pledges on transport beyond railways, we want to re-regulate the buses. We want the buses also to become a public service, to keep fares down, to have more lines able to run, to make sure that, that buses are a resource that is there for everybody, including the disabled, older people, etc., running more routes into the countryside, etc. Because what we need to do, if we're going to move away from over-dependence on the motor vehicle, over-dependence upon lorries and cars to move things and people around, is to have a proper public transport system in this country. Again, and that's what we don't have right now. What we also pledge to do is to make Cambridge the cycling capital of Europe. We want Cambridge to be not just the best place in Britain, but the best place in Europe for cycling, and to improve things dramatically for pedestrians. We want to pedestrianise more, we want to bring in more 20-mile-an-hour speed limits across residential areas in Cambridge. We want to ensure that pedestrians are free of the excessive amount of motor vehicles that you have at the present time here in Cambridge. To do all of this, we also need to disincentivise people from driving into or through Cambridge. So we propose that we need to look again at the possibility of a congestion charge for Cambridge. The other parties talk a good talk sometimes on transport, but what they're not prepared to do is stand up and make the courageous choices that actually need to be made, if we actually are going to reduce the levels of congestion in this wonderful city. Levels which are approaching gridlock and which, as Tony has said, are leading to severe air pollution problems here in Cambridge. So we're talking about a congestion charge as a way you can actually, as they have done in London, reduce the levels of motor vehicles and make it possible to have buses and cycles and people on foot walking, cycling, moving around the city more freely. It's time to get Cambridge moving again. So that's transport. Now health. Health too is a service that should be a public service, but increasingly is under threat. Successive Labour governments and now Conservative and Lib Dem governments have undermined the National Health Service as a public service. And we know all about that here in Cambridgeshire. We've seen it at Hinchingbrook, we've seen it at Addenbrooks. To just today, the King's Fund put out a report, the NHS is in trouble. Services are working less well than they were in the past. Why is this happening? We say it's happening because of privatisation, because the money is being creamed off to administration, is being wasted. We don't have the NHS as a true public service in the way we did in the past. We want to put that into reverse, and only we are serious about this. Labour, unfortunately, cannot be trusted on the issue because it was they who brought in the private finance initiative. It was they who incrementally started to privatise parts of the NHS. That process is being continued under this government. Not initiated, merely continued. So we say that only the Green Party can be trusted on the NHS. And what's more, in terms of health, in terms of public health, it's the Green Party that has something to offer beyond simply the old-fashioned agenda of curing ills. We say, let's have a society that is based on wellness. Let's prioritise quality of life. Let's have joined-up thinking in government, which will make health a strand that runs through everything. So, for example, think about transport and health, two interconnected issues. Yeah? If we have more air pollution, then we have worse health. If we get air pollution under control, then we don't have a need for so many acute services. If we have more people walking and cycling, we have a healthier population, we have less obesity, we have less heart disease. Again, we don't need to have so much invested then in acute care. This makes economic sense, and of course it makes perfect sense in terms of people's quality of life. So only the Greens have a holistic view on the NHS, and only the Greens can be trusted to keep our NHS public and indeed to restore it to being a true public service again. So these are our signature issues for this campaign. Transport and the NHS linked together as public services, in which we also link here this library, and with, of course, as Tony has said, absolutely fundamentally a bedrock in sustainability and thinking seriously about this one planet that we share, that we think people in Cambridge are ready to do in a way that perhaps some people in some other parts of the country are not so ready to do. We think people in Cambridge, voters in Cambridge, are the kind of people who think deeply about these issues, who care about them, and are willing to make the tough choices that are needed if we're going to find our way to a common future together. And one of those tough choices is facing people on May the 7th. What's needed on May the 7th is not just a massive increase in the number of Green votes, which we are definitely going to see. We need more Green MPs. We need more people to stand with Caroline Lucas and make the things that need to happen, to make those changes into a reality. Tony did superbly well here in 2010. As he said, he tripled the vote. This was our third best result in the whole country. If we triple the vote here again this time, I will be elected as Cambridge's MP. And we now have, since the Green surge, since having an MP, this is now possible. We have that possibility in front of us. Let's seize it. So what I say this morning is, to anyone who voted for Tony last time, to anyone who thought of voting for Tony last time but didn't, we know a lot of people voted Lib Dem last time rather than Green. What did they get? They got David Cameron and George Osborne in Downing Street. Tactical voting is so 2010. Tactical voting is so over. Now it's time to vote for what you believe in. To anyone who voted Green last time or thought of voting Green last time, to anyone who's ever thought of voting Green, now is the time to vote for what you believe in, and you might just get it. You might get what's in this manifesto, and that's what we need to make a better future for Cambridge and a better future for this country. Thank you.